Greetings my fellow Fright Beans, it's your buddy BoogeyMan Ben here for a new episode of BoogeyMan Ben's Horror Zone, and today's video is a requested video. This was a request from a YouTuber who goes by the name of Darth Jeffro, and he asked that I do a top 10 vampire movies video, which is something that I was planning to do anyway, so it just kind of worked out. Darth Jeffro, this is for you. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope everyone else enjoys breaking down my favorite vampire films. So number 10 on my list is going to go to Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, was released in 1992, the year I graduated high school, and stars an amazing cast. You have Anthony Hopkins, Keanu Reeves, Winona Ryder, the amazing Gary Oldman. Cannot say enough great things about this film. The costumes, the makeup effects, the acting, just fantastic actors, beautiful directing style as Francis Ford Coppola can only give us. I just love so many things about this film. The visuals are amazing. It was a film that I didn't really appreciate as an 18, 19-year-old kid when I first saw it, but as I've grown older, and my wife is really a big fan of it, as I've grown older and rewatched it, I really just think it's magnificent. It's just one of the best vampire films ever made. Cannot say enough great things about this film. Number 9 on my list is going to go to Blade 2, directed by Guillermo del Toro. Starring, of course, the amazing Wesley Snipes, Norman Reedus, Ron Perlman, Chris Christopherson, fantastic cast, an amazing film. I put it on top of the Blade franchise. It's always going to be my favorite. It was my introduction to Guillermo del Toro. He just is an amazing, amazing filmmaker, and I love the visual style of Blade 2. Such a fantastic film. It's got some terrific scares, some terrific gore. Amazing makeup effects. I thought the story was so fantastic, and it's just, I still think one of the best comic book movies ever made. Number 8 on my list is going to go to Interview with a Vampire, which was released in 1994. Of course, stars Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Kirsten Dunst, Christian Slater, Antonio Banderas, Stephen Ray. Just a fantastic film. I never get tired of watching the film. I love Neil Jordan's style. I've never been a huge Tom Cruise fan, but I think he is fantastic as Lestat, and I think everybody in the cast just does an amazing job. It's just such a beautiful film. So well acted, so well done. I never get tired of watching it. Number 7 on my list is going to go to 1986's Vamp. Directed by Richard Wink and starring Grace Jones, Robert Russler, Chris Makepeace, Dee Dee Pfeiffer, Gidi Watabe. I've always loved this film. It was, again, it came out around the same time like Fright Night did, and it was just one of those films that it was on cable and I used to enjoy watching it, and just absolutely love the cast. I think Chris Makepeace and Robert Russler have fantastic chemistry as friends in that film. As Keith and JC, they just seem like buddies, and I just thought that the chemistry between them was fantastic. But Grace Jones is also fantastic in the role as Cassandra. She scares the crap out of you. There's just something eerie and off about her, but I love the makeup effects in it. I love that it's in this isolated, area of town, where the guys go to this strip club and everything. It's really well done. It's not a vampire film that a lot of people talk about, but it's definitely one that people should give more attention to, and it should be praised along with a lot of other great 80s vampire films. Number 6 on my list is going to go to Fright Night Part 2. As a follow-up to the original Fright Night, I think it's a really good film. I mean, it has, even though it's a different director, it's not Tom Holland, it was Tommy Lee Wallace, but it still has that feel of the original Fright Night. It doesn't have necessarily the same style, but there's a feel to it that, you feel like, William Ragsdale, and of course you have the late great Roddy McDowall returning as Charlie Brewster and Peter Vincent, so you have that dynamic, which carry overs fantastically into the sequel. But I also love Julie Carmen. You have John Grice, Brian Thompson, Tracy Lynn, and I think it's really done well. It's another one that I think balances the horror and the humor really well. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a great sequel. Number 5 on my list goes to The Lost Boys. I remember seeing The Lost Boys in the theater when I was 13 when it came out, and was blown away because at the time, I didn't realize that they were shooting it in Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk was a place that I had gone to many times as a kid. My dad took me there a lot, And it was just amazing to me that they had shot this movie there with one of my idols at the time, which was Corey Feldman. I was a huge fan of his because of the movies he had done, like Gremlins, Stand By Me, The Goonies, and Friday the 13th Final Chapter and New Beginnings. So I was a huge fan of his. And then, you know, the fact that it had such a fantastic cast, Diane Wiest, Jason Patric, Bernard Hughes, the amazing Kiefer Sutherland, and of course the late great Corey Haim. I just think it's a fantastic film that never gets old. It's such a great film, and I really enjoyed it as a kid. I idolized the Frog Brothers. They were my heroes, and I wanted to be just like them. Again, I was a kid, but you know, I really just enjoy so much about that. It's a great story, great acting, fantastic special effects. Amazing Joel Schumacher did a great job directing it, and you know, it's one of the greatest vampire movies ever made. Number 4 on my list is a more recent vampire film, and that is 30 Days of Night, which just celebrated 10 years last year, which is amazing to me. In my opinion, 30 Days of Night is the last great vampire film. There really hasn't been a lot of great vampire films since then, in my opinion. And I still remember opening night, going to see it, sold out crowd. It was a fantastic experience, such a great concept. I've read the graphic novels from Stephen Niles as well. Just the idea, this town called Barrow in Alaska that goes through 30 days of total darkness, and that these vampires descend upon this town. It's a amazingly scary and effective film, directed by the amazing David Slade. There's so many great visuals in this film, the practical effects, the makeup, the design of the vampires, the way that they talk in a different type of language. I thought Josh Hartnett was fantastic in it. Melissa George is great in it. Of course, Mark Boone Jr. from Sons of Anarchy fame, he was great in it. And Danny Huston as Marlowe is just a terrific vampire. One of the most effective I've ever seen in a vampire film. The film was kind of panned when it came out, didn't get the respect that I think it deserves. I think it's grown in popularity over time, and I hope it continues to do so. It's just a fantastic film, one that every vampire movie fan should definitely give a chance if you haven't checked it out. Number 3 on my list is going to go to the amazing From Dusk Till Dawn. I absolutely love everything about this film, and I remember seeing it with my buddies back in 1996. It just is such a fantastic film because it has so many layers to it. The fact that it starts out like a heist kidnapping movie, and then turns into this insane vampire film at the end, with terrific performances by George Clooney. I was not a fan of George Clooney until this film, and man, did he blow me away as Seth Gecko. I just thought he was fantastic in the film. Of course, you have Harvey Keitel, you have Juliette Lewis, you have Tom Savini, you have Fred Williamson, you have so many great people, Danny Trejo, Cheech Marin, the beautiful Salma Hayek, just amazing effects by KMB, and just some terrific action set pieces. It's one of the greatest vampire movies ever made. It's just a fantastic film, and one I never get tired of watching. Number 2 on my list is going to go to 1985's Fright Night. By Tom Holland, starring Chris Sarandon, William Ragsdale, the amazing Stephen Jeffries, Amanda Bearse, and of course the late great Roddy McDowall. I can't say enough great things about Fright Night. Fright Night, the first time I saw Fright Night I was 12, and I was already a fan of Stephen Jeffries from films like Heaven Help Us and Fraternity Vacation. The Evil Ed character really spoke to me. He was somebody that I identified with because I was a goofy little kid, and he made me laugh. And, you know, it's like I really identified with the performance that Stephen Jeffries gave in that film. I also really identify with William Ragsdale's character, Charlie Brewster, because he was a horror fan. No one believed him. I mean, just the frustration that he was going through trying to convince people that there is, in fact, a vampire living next door to him. I mean, there's a lot of great humor in it, and there's so much great humanity to this film. All of the characters are realistic, and you can't say enough great things about this film and the performances. Just one of the best vampire movies ever made. And number 1 on my list of favorite vampire films should be no surprise to anyone, because it's my favorite film of all time. And that's Tobe Hooper's masterpiece film based on Stephen King's novel, Salem's Lot. Which was released in 1979, starring David Soul, James Mason, Bonnie Bedelia, Lance Kerwin. Jeffrey Lewis, Barney McFadden, Kenneth McMillan. Fantastic cast, fantastic film. I've talked it to death on this channel, but I absolutely love this film. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend it 1000%. Salem's Lot will always be my favorite movie. It's my go-to movie. If I only had one movie to pick to watch for the rest of my life, it would be Salem's Lot. I absolutely love it. I've loved it since I was 7 years old, and it never gets old. I've probably watched it hundreds and hundreds of times, but it is just the perfect vampire film for me. Reggie Nalder's performance as Barlow is one of the most iconic. It's one that still terrifies me. The children floating, Ralphie Glick and Danny Glick floating outside the bedroom windows, I still think is one of the most iconic scenes ever filmed in cinema history. Mike Ryerson's scene with Jason Burke in the bedroom sitting in the rocking chair is still terrifying to this day. The film has so much atmosphere, so much tension, so much ambiguousness about some of these situations and their outcomes. It's a movie that makes you think. It's a movie that terrifies you to the bone without being gory, without being overly violent. It's about the atmosphere, and Tobe Hooper captured that perfectly. And that's why Salem's Lot will always be my favorite vampire film of all time, as well as my favorite film of all time. So that is it, my fellow fiends. I hope you enjoyed my breakdown of my top 10 favorite vampire films. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Let me know what your favorite vampire films are. I would love to hear everybody's top 10 list. That would be fantastic. And remember, check me out on social media. Got my links down below. If you like the content I'm putting out, hit that subscribe button. Share my videos with friends of yours. Let them know about my channel. And I appreciate everyone's support. And as always, stay tuned for some more great content coming real soon. Take it easy. Stay scared as always. Peace.